ein großes Bier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Großes Bier um halb vier. Bratwurst und ein großes Bier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier.
How is he this strong?
Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier. Gibt's in Deutschland um halb vier.
Sorry about this, friend.
What's up everyone, Town from the Airsoft headquarters here, and welcome back to the channel. Wasn't that a really cool intro? So it was a fun little clip that we did kind of in preparation for this overview of the SD6 that we have here. And it was really fun to do, so if you guys did enjoy it, leave a like, and maybe we'll continue to do videos like that as far as like intro-based stuff. But today we're gonna go a little bit more in depth with the actual SD6 AEG. So I do need to do a little bit of housework. So first of all, to make it 100% clear, this is not a sponsored channel. I'm not a sponsored player. The SD6 in question was not provided to me by Elite Force or anyone else. This was purchased by me. This is my SD6. So I'm not partial to any type of party with that. Now, what I am partial to, and I do need to give a thanks because Midwest Industries did support this build. So I have on here the Midwest Industries top rail system that was provided to me by Midwest Industries. I'm a regular shopper there. They recognize me at this point. I actually have more Midwest Industries rail systems on my airsoft guns than I do my real ones because they just perform really well, they feel really well, they hold really well, and I know that they're going to last much longer than a lot of the airsoft guns that I have these mounted onto. And they're super local. I wholeheartedly suggest, and I have, you guys can go back in the records of the YouTube catalog and you can see that I'm telling you guys, like, go check them out, they're really cool. First things first, the MP5 ST6, which is produced by H&K. Within the real world, it is a 9mm submachine gun. It is a very popular machine gun that is seen from multiple countries with multiple different armed forces, whether it be military, police, security. It's so prevalent and popular. It's kind of the AK of the SMG world. Everyone just recognizes it. Now, the SD6, to my knowledge, was designed to have a lockable suppressor on the very front here in order to be, run with, even with supersonic ammo, in order to quiet that down so you can go indoors and you're not going to blast your hearing or your buddy's hearing. At least that's how I understand it. Now, over the years of manufacturing MP5s, there's been multiple variations of the SD6, and then there's even the SD5, if my information is accurate. And there's just a whole bunch of different accessories and setups and loadouts with the different countries, with the different applications where they might be using a MP5 or even the SD6 platform specifically. So there's a lot of history and there's a lot of customization when it comes to the MP5s and the SD6s as well. And for the last video that I put out about the SD6, the thumbnail did say that I've been waiting for 5 years. And that is because that we have had this competition one out. So from Elite Force, they have multiple tiers of MP5s that they are carrying. The competition series, which is similar to this, and they also have an A4, A5 variant in the competition series. What separates the competition from the Elite is that this is a all polymer body. So this is not metallic in any type of way. It's very basic in construction, internally very basic. It's lightweight, it's very cost effective, around $200 retail. They just do what they need to do. They perform well enough. Again, there's a reason why they're called the competition series. They are also, as of right now, are producing more of the Elites. Now, this SD6 in particular is kind of the middle tier. So it does feature a metal body. So this part right here, from the mag well to the upper receiver here, is going to be an all metal construction. and this MP5 is significantly heavier compared to the competition series. Internally, as far as this manufacturer, which is still Cyma, it is not much different compared to the competition series. There are still some changes as far as those internal parts and components, but relatively same from the same company. The other features are with the retractable stock, there's a large piece of rubber here. The handguard and battery space is just a little bit better built, in my opinion, compared to the competition, and it just performs better than the competitions. And then the step up from the SD6 Elite is going to be the Avalon series Elites, and these are going to feature similar metal up receivers, much more realistic type of polymer construction of the lower receiver, a proper polymer stock system, proper polymer handguard, and of course are going to feature the Avalon internal system, which we have had an abundance of success with, both as far as reliability and out of the box performance. So I have one of these guys in my collection. It's actually the MP5 that is hanging up right there, and I've done multiple videos and gameplays featuring that MP5 in particular. So I'm super excited in order to get my hands on an SD6. Since the competition was released many years ago, I've always wanted the metal body variant of it. However, at the time, Elite Force being the HK license holder, very hard for us to get any other type of MP5s here into the US. So I just had to play the patient game and just wait for one of the metal body SD6s to come out. And so it's finally here, and I am incredibly ecstatic with the features and the construction of the rifle itself. So I'm super excited to actually start to break down to you guys what it's coming with, how it performs, and just trying to educate you guys, because there's a lot of misinformation out on the market right now, because people love to form opinions before they actually have the product themselves. Carter.
Talon from the future here, and really quickly, before we get too long into the actual video itself, I totally forgot to do the actual specs of the entire rifle itself. So very quickly, stay with me for just a couple minutes. So the entire length, as far as the shortest configuration, is going to be 20.5 inches, and then the longest configuration is going to be 30.5 inches. And if I'm going too fast, I'm going to have the specs here off on the side. The weight comes in at 4 pounds, 13 ounces. The inner barrel is going to be about 7 5/8 inches, or around 210 millimeters about, which is pretty okay for an MP5. Inner barrel, it shot really, really good. Then I'll talk more about that real quickly. The magazine that's going to come with in the box is going to be a 200 round high capacity magazine that has the wheel on the bottom. I always dump those high capacity magazines and go with my mid caps, and for almost all the videos I'm going to be running the newer Cyma mid cap magazines, just so you guys know. The FPS mine out of the box was around 314 feet per second. Now this gun does come with a true quick change spring system, so you are able to drop that spring out and put a higher tension one or a lower tension one if you need a lower tension. This was very convenient because I actually did take this to an outdoor game, an outdoor event, and it performed really, really well. Again, I'll talk about that in just a minute. The gearbox is going to be the basic Cyma version 2 gearbox, but it is like a weird little hybrid from Cyma. And again, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. The rounds per second, because this is a PDW and it is pretty critical when it comes to using them at milsim games, with a 7.4 volt LiPo, I was getting around 12 rounds per second. So a little bit on the slower side, but it does allow you to get controlled rounds per second on different objectives or within different environments. One example would be at a larger event. For the guys that run like 20 rounds a second, 30 rounds a second, those are all really fast speeds and can lay down a lot of heat really quickly, but that doesn't give you a whole lot of time in order to calculate if these first 3 rounds go in this direction. You know, do I need to counter this way or this way due to wind variance, so on and so forth. So for mid-cap magazines, this holds 130 rounds. So if you do the math really quickly, bear with me, at a higher speed, 20 rounds a second, 130 round mag, that's going to completely blow it in about 5.5 seconds. Versus 12 rounds a second, you have significantly more time in order to lay down on the trigger and have more controlled bursts on a wider selection of targets. There's pros and cons to each different method, but I would prefer, on a full auto build, something a little bit slower of a rate of fire. Now, speaking of using this in game, I have played with it both indoors and outdoors at this time of at least this recording, after I did the whole in-depth review or overview. And I love this gun. I mean, for the package that it comes with, I first used it indoors. It performed really, really, really well out of the box. Obviously a little bit slower, and due to my preference of battery type, I am running 7.4s and 11.1s on it, even though you totally should not. I did take this outdoors. I did change the spring out for a higher tension spring in order to get closer to that 380 feet per second in order to be, have a higher velocity outdoors. And this performed really well outdoors at that short to medium length engagement. Obviously, being with a shorter barrel system, it's gonna have a little bit harder for time in order to get out to those farther targets. While I can range out to those farther targets, being a shorter barrel system, there is more inconsistencies as far as that flight path of those BBs, and I just didn't have nearly as much control where those BBs ended up flying. So I was much more dangerous within those close CQB environments, as well as being able to quick pop out, get those medium distance shots, and then go back to doing my super CQB stuff, as example with the tunnel footage here. Now, some of the gripes that I have seen of this SD6, in particular of guys on the internet. First and foremost, I have seen a bunch of people that commented, oh, there was a BB that came in my magazine and in the hop-up unit. Well, those are gonna be BBs that are put inside there for the guys that are doing quality control testing, not only from the factory, but also the customs guys that are, checking everything before they actually make it into the US. It is one of those things that the USA is much more regulated on and much more dependent on for our inputted goods. And that can lead as to why BBs are getting stuck in magazines or in hop-up units. Even mine came with BBs in the magazine and in the hop-up unit. Called my rep from Elite Force and he said, yep, that's totally normal. Our guys were just doing quality control. So that's why there's BBs inside of there. The other gripes that people will have is because they're trying to compare this gun to the SD6s that are available overseas. These are not the same gun. While they are coming from the same factory, they are not the same gun. There's a very big disconnect with the airsoft market, with the airsoft players specifically, trying to distinguish between the different guns that are available from different countries. This was something that I had very recently in the store here, and it's not a fault of you guys as the players. I wish you guys would do a little bit more research from sources that are here in the US, but I get it. The stuff as far as reviews and information are coming from overseas much sooner than they are in the US. I understand that, but there's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of misinformation because the guys that are making ASD6 for the European and Asian market have very different internals compared to what is available on the US market specifically. So please stop comparing this gun to what's available overseas. They are very different. They come with different accessories. They come with different internal specs and go through very different quality control standards. Hint, hint, theirs is much lower than ours are. So in the US, we have much higher quality control regulations. That's why we have so many guns go through the customs quality control testing, and it takes so much longer for them to get here to the US, discounting, the shipping status. But I love this gun a lot. I have used it, again, indoors and outdoors. I have fallen on it and I've accidentally dropped it more than once already, primarily outdoors. But one of the things that you may have noticed is that this arm right here is bent inward because I was running, I slipped on some mud, I fell my shoulder into this arm right here, and now it's bent inwards. Now I could totally bend it backwards, but it didn't snap, it didn't break because they used very specific metals in conjunction with this model right here. And you may have seen me use this guy, maybe down at Arena. I know a bunch of guys didn't notice I had this at Ship of Fools, but I'm gonna have a video specifically about this thread adapter, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it in this video. In fact, I'm gonna cut most of the time that I spent talking about this because it was just prototyping at the time, and our final version, I have dedicated an entire video to. So, no more talking about that. You guys can continue to watch the channel specifically for any type of footage and content about that. But again, I really love this gun. I think it performs really well. It sounds really good. And it's just so much more advantageous compared to the competition series that are available here in the US because they're so much easier to disassemble and get access to those internal parts and components compared to the competition series, which I feel like not a lot of people have taken the competition series apart. It's a huge pain in the butt, and I hate having to do it. This is just so much easier, and I would totally spend an extra $200 for just having the ease of disassembly. I try to make this super short and to the point, so let's get into the actual recorded overview, the proper in-depth overview of this gun in particular.
We're gonna get right into it right now. So we are gonna do our traditional tip to butt, and then later on I'm going to talk about some additional features, some additional cliff notes, as far as things that need to be considered as well. But I'm gonna really quickly try to go over tip to butt. So we have here the suppressor. This one is taped Talon suppressor because we have been doing work on creating a 3D printed thread adapter. So the suppressor here is plastic in construction, a traditional plastic orange tip. They did put it around the entire front face and about 1 inch deep as far as the entire can. What's cool is that there are 2 lugs here and there are 2 wings that you can slide those wings into the lugs, and then you just twist it 90 degrees and it locks into place. And then just as easily as attaching it, you can twist 90 degrees off and the entire thing comes off. These need to be plastic in construction because currently, thanks to the ATF, it's very hard to get metal construction mock suppressors into the US. This plastic can actually took 1 year in order to get cleared and approved by the ATF. So if you guys know anything about the ATF, more than likely they wouldn't let a metal mock suppressor make its way through. And even if it was getting a green light, a green check mark, it would probably take significantly longer than 1 calendar year. So the reason why, paired with a metal body, they just retained the original plastic mock suppressor because that's what they had available, and it just makes everything way smoother. So even if you remove the plastic can or the thread adapter that we have, you're still gonna have a bright orange lug system, and you know, there's no way to remove it as far as I know easily. As far as just removing a screw or anything, it would mean completely defacing it, which is not super great. I'm gonna remove my zoom camera because right back behind the orange tip there, we do have our very iconic circular handguard. Now this is going to be made of a plastic material, so it is not, it's textured, but it's not grippy like some of the older school rubberized ones. So it still will hold really well, it still feels really good, it's still a good accessory to have on here. It's not like real firearm perfect, but it's still better than not having one at all. In order to hold the circular handguard into place, there are these little tabs that just need to be pulled out. They are retained via a rubber O-ring, and that is the only thing that holds them in place. So just be careful not to lose those tabs. The entire handguard is going to come off, and in my battery compartment is going to be a 7.4 lithium polymer, and this here is the battery compartment. Now this is sized for nickel metal hydrides, and out of the box it is going to come with a mini Tamiya. I modified mine to take a Dean's connector because I had purchased a Murph 3.2, which was designed to be a plug and play, so I could safely run 11.1 volt LiPos. However, the Murph, after plugging it in and putting it in 11.1 on there, which was just a Valken 11.1, did not exceed the standard operating voltage or amperage or anything like that with Gape products, something happened and it created some type of grind and short, and essentially it just broke the gun. By putting the MOSFET on here, plugging the battery into that MOSFET, something happened in here to where I needed to completely disassemble the gun, realign some things, and put it all back together and get it working again. So I did mess with the gun internally, but only because the Gape MOSFET, which is supposed to be a plug and play, but it is not a plug and play, it's been open. So it's not a pure out of the box, because it has been technically messed with. Putting the handguard on, please note that there is a right and a wrong way. There is, on one side of the circular handguard, some material that's cut out, versus the other side actually has more material built onto it. So the side that has the material taken away, that's the end that's going to slide onto the actual handguard first. So this one has material cut away, slides into place, and then you do need to give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it's going to lock into place to where you can put the tabs back into the rubber O-rings and lock everything back down. As of right now, these tabs are incredibly hard to get your hand a hold of. Not only the competition Elite Forces, but also some Tokyo Maruis, some ICSs, and I believe some SRCs are going to use the traditional circular handguards, and those tabs can get lost. And to my knowledge, it is very difficult to find any more tabs aftermarket. So please keep hold of them. I am just using one tab at the moment, so the other side does not have a tab holding the handguard in place. That way I have my spare one locked into a secret compartment that no one can get a hold of, and if I do lose this one, I know exactly where my backup one is. But going up from there, we do have on the left-hand side a charging handle. Now, one of the issues that I have with this, paired with this top rail system from Midwest Industries, in conjunction with a 45-degree offset mount, which I intentionally put here, the charging handle itself cannot come backwards, which is not an issue with this MP5. That isn't a concern because the charging handle doesn't do anything other than, it'll expose your hop-up unit, but I only need to go back about 1.5 inches in order to expose that hop-up unit. So it's not impeding the entire operation of the charging handle. I can still pull it back. I can still get access to the hop-up unit. But as far as that locking the charging handle back and up, I can force it back and up, but this is still not something you want to do. So classical MP5 charging handle slap is slapping downwards, and so that is very much not what you want to do. Please do not slap your charging handle. Not only will that break your charging handle guaranteed, but it'll also start to shatter things. Go watch the other MP5 video where I talked about slapping your charging handle, even with the Avalon series, which has the reinforced charging handle. So just don't slap your MP5s, please. Even the real ones. Don't even slap the real ones. So the Midwest Industries top rail mount here does lock into the front iron sight post here, which is just going to be metal in configuration, circle, post, pretty basic, pretty standard, not adjustable. To the left of that is going to be a single loop for your sling points, exactly what I've demonstrated here. This is going to be a metal barrel system, so it is going to be heavier in weight. Very, very well built, however. And that's pretty much it for the entire front handguard space here. We go back, we have the entire metal body, and we have the left and right hand side. Now, because it is so short, we have significantly more stuff put onto the left and the right hand side here. So I'm going to extrude the stock here, just by a little bit, and we're going to start here on the right hand side. Upper receiver, metal construction, your ejection port here, which gives you access to that hop-up window adjustment. Pretty basic, pretty standard. Your mag well, which actually this is the only one of the Elite Forces that I'm aware of that has the licensed trademark of H&K on the actual receiver, kind of like where it's supposed to be. The competitions and the Avalon Elites do not feature that trademark up by the magwell. So pretty cool that they included that. The magazine release is your traditional MP5 lever down here. If you have, for whatever reason, the desire to take the magazine out like an M4, there's like an AR style of magazine release, but no one uses it, so it's there. A enlarged trigger guard for gloved fingers. Keep that in mind. So it's not going to be available for any type of feathering, being that this is going to be an older school HK style of trigger, and they do have a elongated trigger face. The actual movement of the trigger is significantly longer compared to the traditional version 2 gearbox, which this guy is still using a version 2 gearbox, but the length of the trigger is going to create a lot of problems for guys that want to pull that trigger super fast. You got to go a little bit slower just due to the amount of length that the trigger itself presents. Your traditional ambi selector, you have full auto, semi, and safe on the right and the left hand side here. The entire lower receiver is going to be polymer construction. The motor is going to be integrated into the grip here. The grip is not removable. Additional note with this grip in particular, if you are someone that likes to disassemble your AEGs or your airsoft guns in general, this is one that I would suggest do that as little as possible. See, the posts, or really where the screw locks into for the motor base plate, is the actual material of the grip itself. Unlike your traditional, currently manufactured version 2 motor grips that have metal construction for you to screw the motor plate screws into, these are polymer, and in the couple of times that I've taken this apart, it's almost getting to the point where it will start to strip if I'm overturning the screws here. So be aware of that. I don't plan on taking this apart anymore, so I am going to be, safe for now. And that is it for the right-hand side. On the left-hand side of the receiver, we do have, towards the front of the magwell, this little switch here. And there's a lot of people that have questions about this switch right here. On the research that I have done, this is going to be an HK MP5 G3 sling hook. So the HK style of sling that is intended for this system is going to be a 2 to 1 point type of sling. So I wish I could have gotten my hands on one of these so I can demonstrate how it's supposed to sit and operate. Unfortunately, of the ones that I could find, they're supposed to be like an original manufactured one, not like a clone or something, so they tend to be much more expensive. And I just didn't want to spend $80, $90 on a sling. So forgive me for that. But otherwise, same controls and features, safe, semi, full auto, trigger, grip, and that's pretty much it. On the top of the upper receiver, we do have a 4-hole rotating aperture for your rear iron sight. So for the different distances and for different windage, you can adjust that however you want. I believe there's even controls for left, right, up, and down if you really wanted to. However, this out of the box is going to come with a pretty nice MP5 claw mount, optic mount right here. I just chose to take this off so I could have additional room for mounting a zoom camera, a flashlight, something else back here, just dependent on whatever I wanted to use for that event, just because my traditional rail space, which would be right here, is no longer there. So going backwards from the upper receiver, we do have our actual stock systems. Now in the box, it is going to come already mounted with the a 3-position stock. So here is all the way flat. You're going to press the button this direction. Don't press it the other direction because that's going to break the entire system. Turn it that direction. There's going to be a little spring that is going to push it backwards. So you can get it to the second position, which is in the middle between all the way in and all the way out. Press it there and pull out one more time for all the way out. It is to my knowledge that the middle position is not traditional for the SD6s. This is going to be an Airsoft specific of setup. So on traditional MP5 SDs at least, you would have all the way in or all the way out, to my knowledge. This of course can get swapped out. So you have a receiver pin on the back here. Mine is loose enough that I can press it in, extrude out. The entire stock is going to pull out, and I can drop a full stock in place here and put the receiver pin back in place. So while I do prefer the actual ergonomics and controls of the full stock here, this is still a very, very nice full stock. It is very well built. You still have a sling mount back here, and the battery compartment space is extremely generous, and you can actually get access to it way better compared to the Elite full-size stock, which I prefer this a little bit more. It does have rubber on the back here, so having the ability to lock it into your shoulder and the rubber is going to prevent it from sliding up and down and around is extremely nice. I love that functionality. However, I think we can all agree cosmetically with the SD model in particular, this looks a little more correct. So we're going to keep it here. Something to note is that there is going to be a spring-loaded tab that's going to sit right here underneath this bar of the stock itself. What you will need to do is you will need to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to getting access to that. So what you are going to do, pull this backwards, and then you do, in my case, I took a pick and I pressed the lever downwards as I was pulling the stock off in order to swap the stock for the full-size one. You just be careful, it's not stuck. There is a mechanism inside there intentionally preventing the stock from getting removed all the way. And I can demonstrate how to get access to that. But an additional note is that there is a little slot right here. It's not really for a clip of a sling, but you can get some 550 cord. You can make a little lanyard for attaching a sling onto in order to get a little bit more length to the very end here and to here as well. So you have some options as far as slings, even though it looks a little bit more limiting of a sling setup. But that is what we have as far as the actual physical overview of the SD6. Internally, I conveniently have some video clips of me taking the SD6 apart, so we can see that internally it is going to be pretty basic compared to, you know, some of the other CYMA manufactured. So compared to the competition, the internals of this one are significantly better, significantly. But this SD6 compared to the Avalon series, it's still going to be a step down. And that's our UPS driver. Yes, it's still way a step down from the Avalons. Avalons are like chef kiss performance out of the box. Just phenomenal out of the box performance. Well, they're still using the CYMA Elite air voluming systems, but just not the CYMA Elite electronic system, which I personally would have preferred the CYMA Elites. So there's a couple advantages with utilizing CYMA versus Avalons. Probably to continue production on the Avalon series, the MP5 A4 and A5, so they can keep production going on those guys without impeding. You know, if they introduced the MP6 as a VFC, that would interrupt production of the A4, A5s, which do so well already. So I think they went with the same company or manufacturer that they're going with already, so they already have communications going with that. And I think Elite Pros is just like, hey CYMA, can you throw the metal body on there and you can throw some of the more advanced air cylinder systems in this model? I think that's kind of how that conversation went, in order to keep, you know, production high on their highest performing guns.
So there's still like an advantage of getting
In my personal opinion, the Avalons are always going to be the better performer no matter what. However, as of right now, there is no one making a Avalon series MP5 SD6. And I wanted SD6 body and aesthetics. They just are really, really good. Aesthetically, very good. So with the gearbox, it does feature a true quick change spring system, very similar to the Avalon series. However, that's kind of where the similarities are going to end between the two. The Cyma Elite is going to feature the blue air voluming systems, the basic 18-to-1s. They are going to be utilizing a anti-heat bushings. I think that's what they're called. They're pretty basic. I would probably swap them out for some ball bearings, in my opinion. What is very interesting is out of the box, this one was shooting around 314 to 318 feet per second with the Cyma Blue air systems, the piston head, the cylinder head, etc. Versus when I changed the cylinder head, piston head out for a different one that I just happen to have, just as like a comparison, like, hey, if I take these guys out and put this brand in, what's the difference? And I actually lost a little bit of velocity by going with this other brand, which was a mixture of the VFC air voluming systems. So not exactly sure why that happened, but interesting nonetheless. So what's kind of really funny is with the MP5 limited edition, the one that was released last Christmas, that one was supposed to have a quick change spring system. That MP5 limited edition was still being manufactured by the Cyma and utilizing the Elite series of parts and components. And it was advertised as having the quick change spring system, but it didn't have the quick change spring system for some reason. And we could see that. I think I took a screenshot of the early posting from a retailer that said, hey, this has quick change spring system. And then I opened it up and it doesn't have a quick change spring system. So very quickly that kind of went off the list. But this one did. And so in my conversation with my Elite Force rep, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. You guys actually integrated a quick change spring system. And he's like, we were able to do that? And I'm like, yeah. So it's super funny. And it just goes to show that a lot of the parts and components when it comes to manufacturing are still very much delayed. These companies are still making decisions based on what is currently available in that factory. So even though they wanted to include the quick change spring gearbox in the limited edition, if those gearboxes were just going to be delayed up to 4 or 5 months, then they just made the decision, we'll put the non-quick change spring gearbox inside here, but we'll still include the much nicer air volume components internally. Similarly to this, they probably were going to utilize the original gearboxes that they were told that company had. Company probably finally got the quick change spring gearboxes and put those in instead, because that was probably the original plan, and then things mixed up, and then it's just all a big whirring chaos whirlpool when it comes to when these parts and components are coming into the factory. And then all of that communication then gets delayed or just doesn't get communicated to the US distributors here, like Elite Force. And we're seeing that kind of time and time again. With SHOT Show, we got very limited news and information about prototypes or outcoming products, just because they also don't know, or you guys probably even noticed there's a lot of inconsistencies between the different channels when trying to talk about the same product. So currently a lot of things are up in the air, so I'm excited to be able to sit down and tell you guys exactly what's coming inside here, what's all available, and what you guys can look forward to. So some additional notes that I have for you guys. Number one being the sling here. So I am utilizing a more traditional 2-point sling in this configuration, and I am utilizing my more favorite LBX style of sling. Now, if I stand up, Malcolm, can you still see me? This 2-point sling here, you'll notice that I don't actually have the clip attached to the back here. In my experience, when you have the clip like up here, attached to this bridge right here, it'll start to fray and break down the bar here, and that'll actually break away at some point. But it usually takes years of dinking around. So I chose to take the clip off and just weave the actual band of the sling onto the back here. So what's cool with the LBX slings here is that they are adjustable. So there's this little, oh my God, this ratchet that you can elongate the length or shorten it up. So this allows for a couple of things. So in this situation, I'm on a patrol, I just have it hanging out. It's very similar to the actual HK sling, or if I'm doing any type of hands-on stuff, then I can swap it to my back, and I can do whatever I need to here without having a rifle between me and whoever else or whatever else. And I can swap it back. Now, say for example, on patrol, we get jumped, I can grab this clip right here, pull up on it as I'm also pulling the MP5 away, so that the stock, when it's all the way collapsed, is gonna end up in my shoulder. And then from here, I grab the entire handguard with the magazine, and now I'm in a somewhat shootable position. This isn't a great position, but it's better than getting stuck and not being able to shoot at whoever. Now, if I intend on going from patrol position into an actual engageable environment, pull this all the way out, unsling off my head, and I bring the stock out to exactly where I want it. And then I don't have any issues as far as sling in the way, not in the way, anything like that. So that is why I prefer the LBX sling in the configuration that I have it right here. Obviously, personal preference can overrule what I have shown you guys here, so get what you guys prefer. But this is just how I do this. And it's worked for me for the last several days. And I have held this at work. So in the box is going to come a 300 round high capacity metal exterior magazine. It works well enough. Obviously with something like this, you guys are probably gonna have your preference of jumping up to a mid-cap magazine. I have in my collection the standard 90, 100 round Elite Force mid-caps, which are polymer in construction, very lightweight, very cheap, very inexpensive. I also picked up the Cyma better manufactured one. So these guys are going to be polymer construction. It was very nice polymer as well. I've already done a video breakdown of these magazines in particular. These guys are going to hold 130 rounds, and they're going to have a cup follower very similar to the EPM ones. And so I like these a lot. There was a review on one of the postings of the SD6 here, where someone made the comment of the standard magazines don't fit. Well, they fit. Do they fall out? If I pull them out, yes. If I'm sitting here shaking it, no. If I'm hanging it upside down, yes. It requires a lot of force in order to get that magazine out, in my experience, versus these Cyma ones here, no problem. They lock into place, they hold really well, they feed real well. I think they wiggle a little bit less, and they will still come out when applied too much force. That is just one of the features of my MP5 in particular, where if you just pull hard enough, it's gonna come out. But I don't wanna do that because I may wear down both my magazines and the latching plate on the inside of the mag well. So keep that in mind. Both can work. Obviously, you just don't apply too much force to the bottom here. Probably the thing that you guys are probably most concerned about is going to be aftermarket rails, rail adapters, stuff like that. So when it comes to the SD6, and I've done quite a bit of research and digging around, there's not anything aftermarket that you can just buy off the shelf that is going to be a replacement of this handguard system that is designed to be a exact drop-on. At least what you guys probably would want or would prefer as far as having a railed system. So there are going to be a couple of options, and you guys may or may not like the options. Option number 1, you could just deal with the fact that there's no way to mount a vertical grip, an angled grip, a hand stop, anything like that, and you could just grab onto the entire handguard like a man. And then if you don't like the fact that you can't mount a flashlight or any type of other accessory like a zoom camera, then you can just attach the Midwest Industries handguard or a top rail section like I have here for a zoom camera and an offset flashlight. And then obviously plenty of room back here for any type of optic, magnifier, stuff like that. Option number 2. You can go with one of the old school style of, I have currently the ICS SD MP5 handguard adapter. Now this is going to be ICS, so it's very, very, very old school. This was intentionally designed for the introduction of the nickel cad batteries, the very large cell batteries, because the entire base here is going to be where that battery sits. And in my opinion, if we painted this purple, it would look like a Thanos chin. So I call it the Thanos chin handguard because it's just shaped in such an odd way and it's just tubed and accented in such an odd way. But this is designed for SD handguards, so you can have your left, right, and a 6 o'clock rail system for vert grips, hand stops, flashlights, lasers, range finders, whatever you want. So this is a option. It is a very old school option. It is not aesthetically cool, but it's an option. That's an option for you guys. Number 3 is going to be, you could modify your handguard in order to zip tie or lock a old school type of RAS handguard system, or maybe even just a long plate of a rail system on the bottom of the triangle or circular handguard. And that way you can put your vert grip, hand stop, angle stop, flashlights, whatever have you, like we have here with an older school SD6. So just as a case in point, this is option number 3. Option number 4, if you are okay with the circular handguard, you could zip tie a long section of rail to the actual mock suppressor. So that way your original can, and this is where it gets a widow twicky, is it doesn't lock into place. So the actual hand or mock suppressor does lock into place, but then this down here with the zip ties that I have included does tend to sit a little bit loose. So any type of vertical grip or hand stop obviously is not going to be a number 1 choice. But if you wanted to attach maybe a flashlight or laser, something on the side here, you know, this would certainly be a option because it's not, you know, weight distribution. There's no excessive force being applied here. So you could mount your flashlight onto the end here and you could toggle that on or off relatively easily. Option number 5, I'm giving you guys too many options. You don't go with an SD6. You go with something like the Avalon series, which has the better handguard here, or the more easily removable handguard. And you get yourself a Midwest Industries M-Lock handguard like what I have here. Perfect example of having a vert grip and a flashlight that apparently has a dead battery because of how cold it gets back here. But way easier than trying to modify an SD6 circular handguard. So you got options. Not sorry for giving you guys options. I'm sorry that you guys don't like the options. So how does Talon run his SD6? Well, as of right now, pretty bare bones. I made a video talking about the different accessories. What's up? Compared to what I wanted to throw on here, this shit bare bone.
As for SD6s,
Here, microphone.
no. As for SD6, I put a sight on mine, and that's it. Some maybe a flashlight, but with the advent of being able to put a tracer unit in that mock suppressor, flashlight disappeared.
Yeah, well,
Oh yeah.
I didn't show you that.
Oh nice.
Yeah, I put it in the group chat. Did you not look at it in the group chat?
I did. I'm just saying, we're on camera.
Yeah, and then bam.
Bam.
I'm 14 counterclockwise.
Bam.
Well, I made a video a little bit back about the different accessories that I had purchased for this, and I'm very sad boy to say that most of them do not fit. In fact, there are, I think, 2 total items that actually do fit on here. So I had wanted to put the SIG stock onto the SD6, but unfortunately the 2 stock adapters are not compatible with either the Avalon nor the Cyma Elite receiver. So I'm doing the collapsible stock, the retractable stock. I am running the Midwest Industries top rail adapter. On the very front here is going to be a little slot for my zoom camera, just like so. And what's cool is that the Midwest Industries, it locks around the actual front iron sight tab, and then there's a small little bar that you can put your Allen screw inside of, and you can apply more pressure in order to, make sure that the actual rail system doesn't flex up and down, that it's up against the very bottom part of the post, tight enough just so it doesn't move. You don't need to over crank it. But this entire top section on the very front here is going to be M-lock, so I intentionally have my zoom camera, bam, and actually I would mount this slightly forward so my actual lens goes right over that iron sight post, pretty clean. Just behind there is going to be my 45-degree offset, because obviously if I put anything in line here, it's just going to get covered up by my zoom camera. So I have utilized my TLR1. My TLR1 right here is just a little too fat in the head in order to sit nicely in that space. I know, fat head jokes. The Inforce flashlight here, I do like because it conveniently has a 45-degree engagement bar. Now what's weird is that it does need to sit a little bit further back, but it's a little bit harder to lock into place. But anyway, because of the lack of the foregrip, as I tentatively hold this, I can use the Magwell as an actual grip system. So if I insert a magazine, then as I'm shooting here in the stance, I can have my left hand here apply pressure to the actual switch of the flashlight here. And that is the most advantageous way for me to move with the SD6, or at least if I want to toggle the flashlight on or off. And then obviously my adapter, so I can run my Bifrost, because love me some Bifrost action. And while it doesn't look 100% correct, this is still something that I prefer. Now with this, it's a weird combination of modern but also old school aesthetics. It's a weird little like hybrid where it still has the old school type of ergonomics and controls, but it features some of the more modern mounting systems for the SD system, which I kind of like. So I've ran this indoors already a couple of times for a couple of games, and without the tracer unit actually, but I think it performs really well. With the 7.4 that I was running it on, it performed really well. I got good trigger response, decent rate of fire on semi-automatic. Full auto was a little bit slower, but I get that it's a more basic of a motor. It's not a high speed or a high torque or anything like that. So semi-automatic, it did more than what I was intentionally expecting it to do. So I was very happy with the performance, and I was very happy overall with how the body is laid out. Now obviously I did do some small accessory attachments, some things that I would personally prefer, but it's not like I needed to attach those in order to better equip or just make the gun better. It already performed really well out of the box. These are just things that personal preference I wanted to mount to. So I think it is very steep for the price point, but it is one of those systems that is in between the competition SD6, and it's also in between an Avalon system. So it's not quite the same price as an Avalon rifle, but it's also not the same cheap quality as the competition series SD6. It's kind of in that gray in between. So because of that, there's a lot of people that are comparing the competition to the Elite, and fair, they're both SD6s, they're both from Elite Force. But the material construction and the internal parts components are significantly different enough to where it's not a fair comparison. Is it worth the $150 difference? I think so, wholeheartedly. I totally believe that. That's up to you guys to decide as well. I have used it indoors. I thought it performed extremely well, and I think you guys are gonna really like it a lot. I have yet to have an opinion formed about performance outdoors. This weekend I am going to go to Ship of Fools, which will have passed by the time that this comes out. But I am going to use it outdoors, and I'm going to have a officially formulated opinion of how it performs outdoors. So as of right now, indoors, phenomenal. I'm going to change that spring, and I'm going to put a higher tension one inside so I can run it more closely to that outdoor limit and just be a little more competitive maybe. But that's all I have for you guys, essentially. You know, we're gonna keep rehashing this SD6 out. I'm gonna keep giving you guys more information, my experiences on it. But overall, I think that this is a phenomenal product, and I'm gonna use it a lot. Anyway, that is what I have for you guys. Please stay tuned for further news about that thread adapter. Stay tuned for more information about the SD6. Stay tuned for more gameplay featuring the SD6. And obviously, if you have any further questions, put them down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. But with that, we are all set here. So you guys take care, stay safe, stay positive. I'll see you guys at Ship of Fools if you guys are going to be attending Ship of Fools. And with that, we're all done here. So you guys take care, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Yeah. This is the B-roll. I was joking.
This is the after credits scene.
After credits. Yeah.
Cue the slow fade. Yeah, that's what this is. We have off to the left the subscribe button. As always, that helps the channel.
Yeah. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jackson crotch area is going to be the best suggested video that YouTube has for you.
Oh, there we go.
Right here. Yep, and then cue the super slow fade out.
Perfect.
It cues the fade to blackness.
For sure.
Like our existence within this slow revolving rock.
Castile. That's it.